Hi, this is Dave Belsky. I'm your host of the Sunset Session. This is episode number 21 for you people counting at home. We have a very special guest today, a cannabis executive by the name of Austin DeAngelis, the SVP of Sales and Operations for Stacks, which is the plant-touching division of Eaze. Is that correct?
That is it, Dave. Thank you. Thanks for having me on such a special episode, number 21.
Thanks for coming in. I mean, I've known you, it's only been 3 years?
3 years in August will be Eaze.
Wow, August 2018 to present at Eaze.
That's correct.
So many stories to tell. Don't know where to start. But for anyone that can't imagine, what is a SVP of Sales and Operations at Eaze do? What are you responsible for?
So, and I'm sure we're going to get into this later, but Stacks is the solely owned plant-touching entity of Eaze. Right? So solely owned by Eaze, but the plant touching part of that. So I'm more on the cannabis side of the business. So on that side, we have our depot operations, so the folks that are working in the dispensaries, making the deliveries. My role at Eaze currently is working with the team on building our own private label brands. So we've launched 2 brands internally at Eaze. I also work very closely with our brand team, so the team that curates our menu, what brands are coming on, what we're promoting. That's part of the role at Eaze. Financial operations, so I'm sure also get into the debt that Eaze had at one time. Part of the team that we built internally at Eaze to make sure that didn't happen again, but making sure that money moved through our system. And then also ordering and purchasing falls within my domain at Eaze now.
Wow, and purchasing at Eaze would make you the largest buyer in the state of California and the largest cannabis market, potentially?
I don't know if it's the largest, but I think we're probably up there, yeah.
And like top line wise, just for perspective, you know, revenue in cannabis deliveries in California projected 2021 somewhere north of $250 million?
That's right around there, maybe a little bit less, but right around there, yeah.
Right. So, you know, significant if you look at the scope of the entire state of California being roughly the legal market, $5 billion market this year.
That's right.
I'm not a math major, but that seems to be a significant percentage, more than any other retailer.
Sure.
Love it. So talk to me about Austin before cannabis. What did you do before, and where were you when you got the call? Like, right. Hey, you knew Nick, right?
That's right. Yeah. So I had a interesting path to be able to get here. I was in Atlanta. I'd been in Atlanta my second stint working at a company called Springbot. It was an e-commerce SaaS company, literally nothing to do with cannabis. Living in Atlanta, Georgia is and it's what it's still now, and at the time even more so.
It's a cannabis desert.
It's a cannabis desert. That's right.
Well, no, there's a lot of people that smoke cannabis in Georgia, right. But they're
it is frowned upon.
Felonies.
It is a felony. You do not want to get arrested in Georgia with cannabis. That's right. And anecdotally, I'd worked for Nick Fasano, who's a CRO at Eaze. I'd worked for him at 2 companies in Boston, and I had come out here for a work trip while I was at for Springbot, and I had dinner with him at a Shade Hotel close to here. He blew me off, I think, twice, but I was actually able to get him to have dinner. But it was just how are you doing? How's your family? I'd had like my first kid, so I was talking to him about that. And then obviously interested at Eaze, and so he ran me through what he was doing, and just a casual dinner. And then a month later, he called me and said, like, do you want to come out and do this thing and see what Eaze is about? And so we came, my wife and I flew out here. We came out, did the interview process, and made a leap of faith. I think one with the industry, because of where it was at. It was so young, it was so nascent. Getting into something so early and getting rooted in it was really exciting. But then more importantly, when you got to Eaze, not just the executive team that I interviewed with and went through the process with, but you get to start to work with the people that are still on the teams and at Eaze still now, that were doing the work, that were working with the brands, that were in the depots, that were launching new markets. And it was just such an impressive team. That it wasn't that it was an easy decision, but the team made it easier to come out here and take that risk. And so I got here 3 years ago. It would be August was when we started at Eaze, and then been drinking from a fire hose since then.
Drinking from a fire hose is synonymous with running a cannabis company or being a leader in one of the largest cannabis companies in the largest market on the planet.
I think that's right, yeah.
Coming up to speed, onboarding never stops.
That's right.
Right? Because as soon as you got it figured out, the whole dynamic changes, right?
There's no playbook, right? Like in delivery.
Well, software sales is there's a methodology and a playbook to apply and drive revenue, and it's all private equity backed, and the valuations are set.
That's right.
In this one, I mean, like, and that's a good wave to ride, you know, once you figure that game out.
Right.
But there's something about you where you're like, this is against the grain enough for me to be really interesting and provide an amazing opportunity.
That's exactly right. And I think like the complexity of the industry, the dynamic part of the industry, how you have to work with so many different teams within our company just to be able to take a product, a consumer good, and bring it to someone's house. Like, we have a great government affairs team, a compliance team, and because of them, like, we have the ability, in working together, we have the ability to go to that scale. And I think that one of the things that I saw in cannabis very early on, it's true to my heart still now, is that the way that you're able to scale to be able to solve those complex problems, because it's not if they're going to happen, it's when they're going to happen. Something's going to go wrong, something's going to fucking break, someone is not going to do what they said they were going to do. Being able to have that collective team, being able to invest in that team to make sure that you can execute, has been one of my biggest learnings, which is that in cannabis, more so than in software for me or other places that I've worked, cannabis is about like being able to have the right folks in the right places and the right team to execute on it. And I think if you do and have that focus, it becomes addictive. The industry becomes addictive. It becomes something that you just want to continue to learn more about and figure out.
I love that. I completely agree with you. I think cannabis is not for everybody.
That's right.
You know, as the careers in cannabis aren't for everybody. That's
right.
Okay. Most people can find some type of therapeutic or recreational benefit from the plant itself.
Sure.
But what it is really special when you get creative people in a room doing something they believe, you know, solving complex problems, doing something they think makes the world a better place.
That's right.
When there's never been a solution, but people are coming together to be creative, and it transcends work.
That's right.
You know, and it is more calling and passion. And you mentioned team. You know, I'm fortunate to work with fantastic teams in the industry and help build a lot of the teams. And when you get people together that play well with each other, you know, you can handle a lot that's thrown at you, and that's what it takes in cannabis.
In my experience so far, it's the people that come solution oriented, that want to take that Rubik's Cube and figure it the fuck out, right? And be able to see if with themselves and their teams, like, can we get through this? And I think where we talked about earlier today is resilience. I think that's a really good way to represent like teams within cannabis that operate at a high level. And I also think it's a good way to represent how Eaze has been over the last, in my experience, the last 3 years at Eaze has been resilient through a lot of, you know, ups and downs, through regulations, through, you know, pivots in our model.
Let's talk about that pivots in the model, regulations. I mean, when you started, Eaze was purely a technology company.
Straight technology company.
And now it is a plant touching company.
That's right.
So, you know, in 2018, when you started, the California cannabis industry was not even operational. The legal industry was trying to get off the ground. There was supply chain issues. There was testing issues, and dispensaries, quite honestly, had a lot of power in terms of, you know, not paying brands.
Right.
You know, everyone wanted shelf space. There's so much venture money thrown into speculative brand creation in California, and so it's not like the dispensary could have plenty of brands to want to be on the shelves, right? And but what were the biggest challenges that Eaze faced for being a purely technology play, trying to do on-demand delivery in California? Yeah,
so the first one I would start with, the first kind of mandate for me when I came into Eaze was the expansion of that old model. Right, so when I came into Eaze in August of 18, we covered about 42% of the state. So we weren't in markets like Orange County, huge markets. We weren't in markets like Long Beach. We weren't in Palm Springs. We hadn't really filled out or built out all of LA yet. We now cover LA with, you know, 5-6 different fulfillment centers, dispensaries, right? So like at the time we only had 2 or 3. So from efficiencies, demand, area of coverage, we weren't able to hit you know, the biggest cannabis market in the world. So that was the first mandate. So we went and we were able to go from 42% of the state to being able to cover 91, 92% of the state, which we do now. Problem with that is we expanded that quickly. We started in Eaze name, and we had that level of demand. As you mentioned earlier, supply chain issues with certain brands and being able to meet that demand was a struggle at times. As we expanded, we also then, well known in the cannabis space, as I'm sure you have people that you've worked with that Eaze has owed money in the past too. We had a situation where, because we were a technology partner, we didn't have any controls, as I was talking about earlier, around how many drivers we put on the road, right? The dispensaries.
The drivers were employees of the dispensary partners, right, that fulfilled the orders placed by your customers online. Right. and you could only suggest to those dispensaries that they needed to have 12 drivers on the road based on the data that you had, but
That's right.
they had to actually do it.
They actually had to do it. And if they didn't want to, or if there was a conflict, those
Or
drivers...
like, you guys told me that last week and we only needed 6, you guys were costing us money or something.
That's
You
exactly
hear
right.
it all.
That's exactly right. And so on that side with the drivers in the depot operations, as well as on cost of, or on our products, right? So we could only make recommendations to our partners on what to buy. So our assortment, the way we wanted our menu to look, the good, better, best kind of strategy, we weren't able to do that from San Diego to Sacramento because there's no consistency of partners making those decisions.
Right, you couldn't, didn't have ultimate control of the menu.
That's right. And so what also happens that is when you don't have control of the menu and the drivers, we also didn't have control of the money coming in, right? And so with that, we ended up in a situation with a lot of different brands that within our network they were owed, a lot of money.
But it was like Eaze was, everything was being built and nothing had been done before, and you had people looked at Eaze owing money because you the one that had a relationship with the brands on the menu, but it wasn't Eaze, it was the dispensary partners that collected the money, not pushing it off to the brands.
That's right.
And so not controlling the supply chain and being a technology play in cannabis wasn't working very well. Yet, so solving for that debt problem was something that,
right.
how did you do that?
That was one, so expansion was kind of the first mandate. I'd say the second mandate was, with that debt that we had, one of the things we talk about as a company now is being one of the leaders in cannabis and how we act, right? And one of the ways is making sure that we are, a trusted partner, right? And so at that time, we were not trusted partners. We were looked at as not trusted partners, even though it was a little bit outside of our control. So we made a commitment to try to reconcile that balance. We partnered with LeafLink. We brought Doug and his team into California to partner with us. And over the last, call it 2.5 years, we've been able to take over $10 million of debt owed to brands and really bring that close to zero currently. So again, wow. Huge team effort, huge benefit to be able to partner with a company like LeafLink. Huge benefit to the brands being patient with us, staying with us, and making sure that we saw all the way through. But that would probably be the next mandate that I would talk about, is taking up the majority of my team's bandwidth, was just making sure that we could become that trusted partner, make sure that brands knew that when they worked with Eaze, not only would they get the volumes and all the different benefits of working with Eaze, but they were also going to get paid on time. They were going to have not at the experience that brands had in the past, and I think we've been able to deliver on that over the last year, 18 months.
Nice work.
Thanks, homie.
Nice work. I mean, and
it was not a fun time.
Not a fun time. And when you're getting calls from cannabis brand operators saying, "Where's my money?"
That's right.
And you have to explain to them what's going on, and they don't really care. And
right.
But you were able to maintain the relationships with the brands through that, and show that you were able to start turning around things quicker once you took more control of the supply chain.
That's right. And so,
so at what point, like, when the decision came of like, let's go, we're going plant touching, were you like, we have to, there's no other option? And
right. So I think there's
and how do you take that tech company culture, and now you have a fucking cannabis company, how do you do it?
Dave, that's incredibly hard.
Yeah, I know it's hard.
I think that the realization was, getting through that debt component, realizing that the model just didn't work for us. It was not going to scale, right? We couldn't be this large leader in the space if we didn't have controls over the largest parts of our business, right? And excuse me.
Based on the licensing regime alone.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we made a pivot towards the November of 19, and made the decision to become plant touching with first the acquisition of Dime and then Telos. We had 2 locations in San Francisco and then 1 in LA that were under our ownership, right? We control those dispensaries.
So now all of a sudden you had drivers.
We had drivers, we had inventory. We went from having, what I would call an anemic menu with like 100 SKUs in San Francisco to being able to have, 600, right? And making sure not only that the customer experience became better with a better selection and better assortment, but the brands also had that same experience, getting paid on time, working, with a new partner in Eaze 2.0, if you will. So the mandate then was to become plant touching, was to own our, network, own our dispensary network where we delivered out of. So, as of today, we own, 92% of that with one market left to control. And then the other mandate was on work on with Owen, who you know, Owen Rue, on the private label side, to start building our own brands. And so,
and obviously there's a lot of benefit to that because you understand consumers, buying patterns, pricing, and its effect on that. And you were never able to leverage it as a business.
That's right.
Right. And to be able to actually then leverage all that information and almost give you such a ease, in some ways, like such a solid foundation to be a plant touching house of brands, because you know what sells and you have data that other people don't.
I think that's the best way to say it, Dave. Like how we looked at developing brands was totally data driven, right? We had, you know, a mandate from our board and from the company to hit certain metrics and revenue numbers and COGS targets, and so we would look at the menu. Where are the spaces that we can hit those hit those numbers? And we just looked at it completely from a sell-through perspective that we've been able to look at over the last 5 to 6 years, and ultimately build 2 brands right now that are doing extremely well for us, and have as we made that transition being a plant touching company.
Well, you mentioned drinking from a fire hose, but there was a time, like I think end of 2019, it was an article out there. It was like Eaze was struggling to make payroll or something, and there had to be a moment throughout that where you're like, "What the fuck am I doing?"
That's exactly right. 2 kids. My mom lives with me, right? It's
right. Your mom lives with you.
Yeah, my mom's
move grandma.
That's right. Mom's comes with us where we go. So
I'm in the same boat there.
Yeah, that's right. Another one for you.
Hey, bro.
No, it was incredibly nerve-wracking, right? And as an executive and leader in business, like I think the obligation is to
put on a good face, stay positive,
try to again be solution-oriented and what can we do here. And again, another situation in which our team came together and made a decision, was able to get our board's head around it and be able to go vertical. So we didn't run out of money and not be able to make payroll, but we were able to make the decision to become plant touching, raise some capital on it, and then the coolest thing for me through that time was not just the success that we saw as far as pivoting models like on a dime, right? But it was the progression that we did it in a remote environment.
Because you had to become a plant touching company without face-to-face meetings, right? In person.
That's right. And again, I think that's a testament to the team and the people. And as I'm sure you guys talk about with folks all the time, it's about the people you hire and the ability to get them to have to buy into what the company's story is going to be. But more importantly, what I wanted to get to on that day was what I saw for the team was just an incredible level of focus. So like in cannabis, as anyone that's in it knows that like every 5 minutes there's a bright and shiny fucking object. God. And all of us are like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's over there?
Well, it's either opportunity or issue.
Issue, right?
Or something like cool.
Yeah, or like something that someone says important. It is, or it's not important, right? And like blocking out that noise, for us, like I saw an incredible focus from our team. So rather than like, looking at what everybody else was doing or, trying to get involved in other projects or whatever it may be, everybody kind of had their focus, did what they needed to be able to do. And as a company, we were able to see, like, as you said, like going from close to not being able to make payroll to making that pivot, raising the capital, and, hopefully have some other exciting stuff coming.
Well, the FlowerHire True Hollywood Cannabis Story, Austin DeAngelis, resiliency.
That's right.
That's what we got to call it. Resiliency, the True Hollywood FlowerHire Austin DeAngelis Cannabis Story. I don't know. So we'll get there. But the story itself is of Eaze is a crazy story. Guerrilla tactics and billboards, $80 million in cannabis sales in a medical market, surviving the regulatory regime, getting it off the ground, getting sued, having to almost go out of business, and then somehow come out of that, buy the competitor that was suing you, take their plant touching assets, launch your own brand, and come out on top and raise hundreds of millions of dollars, and have a model that is working, and with a company in the black able to run profitably.
That's
I mean, it's a crazy.
Yeah, I haven't really put it together like that.
Yeah, but it's one of the most. It is one of the most unique stories in the industry for sure, and obviously, but we're on chapter 6 of a 20-page book at this point, right? Like, there's been a lot of capital raised, and obviously, being plant touching and building out infrastructure is expensive in the state of California. but there's enough money there. Like, what's next for Eaze?
I think that you mentioned earlier, like I'm going to go off on a little tangent, Dave. Okay.
Let's go. I'm with you.
One of the things that when the COVID first hit, the pandemic first hit, and saying like everything kind of in cannabis, retail, a lot of things shut down, right, for a period of time, like delivery stayed. So we saw tailwinds in that, right? So a period of time like that, we started to see tailwinds because everything was delivery. But at the same time, and everyone that owned retail, everybody that was, owned a retail shop or was getting into retail or was investing, like out of necessity, they had to start doing delivery.
Yeah.
Out of necessity, they had to start doing curbside
e-commerce, curbside and delivery.
There's zero doubt.
Well, overnight.
Overnight, you had to be able to do it. Yeah, it's exactly right. And so with those tailwinds also came like the competition, which was going to be able to come. I think what Eaze's story has been so interesting is our ability to capture the consumer. Right, to be able to keep that consumer and be able to get that level of audience and deliver a service that will continue to have them come back. I think what a lot of the retailers...
Oh, it's true, because the consumer like also hates. And if they don't have a decent experience...
They're not coming back.
They're not coming back.
They're not coming back.
And, the details of concierge and customer service and just priding on that, you have to.
You have to.
Or you get canceled.
It's right. And if we can go and get the customer, but if we don't fulfill on the customer experience and we don't have the right products on the menu, if we don't have the right number of drivers to have a decent ETA, it's just not going to work, right? So that back end part of the operations is a beast, and tying it all together is an absolute beast. I'll say it again. I know I've said it like 15 times. You just have to have the right team. And I think going back to competitiveness, right? One of the things that we saw is that like anyone that's going to get into retail is going to have delivery. Anyone that gets into retail is going to have curbside. They're going to have some level of e-commerce experience as well. That's going to be one of the ways that they're going to get their consumers. So I think for us, we're starting to go backwards from where some of the MSOs or larger companies is, where they started with infrastructure,
right.
They started with grows, they started with manufacturing, they started to build their supply chain. Now they're going to get into retail, and like you and I are probably going to see like over the next 9 months on a daily basis, brands getting gobbled up, right? What our strategy has been is to get to the customer and be able to provide that experience, and then we can work our way backwards through the supply chain, get our better COGS, find other distribution channels. And so I think that's for us is continuing to create that customer experience. It's probably going to look for different types of delivery modalities, different ways to have distribution to the customer, and be able to continue to build our own brands and work with some of the best brands in California. That being said, I think there's going to be an interesting time here where we're going to see a good amount of consolidation, a lot of larger companies coming in with a lot of capital. And so again, I think for me, I just go back to how does Eaze win is continue to have the focus on that customer experience, being able to continue to provide the experience to the consumer that we know that we can deliver on. Going, from having 200 drivers, to 1,500 is a way different, is a very different business. And so I think for us, the learnings of being able to be at that scale earlier give us a little bit of a head start on how to be able to continue to fulfill that customer experience. So I think there's going to be a lot that's going to come, out of Eaze just from going vertical. I think we're going to be able to launch a few more brands. We're going to be in a few other states. So I think there's a good amount.
A few other states, huh?
I think we're
Michigan, right?
Michigan,
and
that's
Oregon
right.
was there, and
we did Oregon for a little while. We're going to be in Michigan. That's right. Oregon, we're not in Oregon any longer though.
Well, that's okay. I mean, and I think that at this point, being plant touching and multi-state and having the insights and information on the consumer that Eaze has, there's a valuable narrative there, right? And now the flexibility and freedom to be a plant touching company, but be your own type of plant touching company, your own MSO, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
with the right collection of assets that make sense based on the condition of every state. And that's one thing about this industry is California's great, but you can't take that California solution and put it anywhere else. The licensing regime is nowhere similar anywhere, right? But it comes down to curating partners and building relationships. And so for you, your role has to be, you're running SVP of Sales and Operations for Eaze, but you got to be doing business development.
That's right.
Like nurturing these very multifaceted supply chain relationships in emerging markets.
That's right. And so doing that in California is hard enough, right? And we don't own any of our own cultivation or manufacturing right now. So having those contract manufacturers that we work with that do a great job has been really good for us in California. But as you go to other states, where you have to be vertically integrated or where regulations are wildly different, again, it goes back to that Rubik's Cube of cannabis, which is like surrounding yourself with people that want to be solution oriented to look at it and be able to say, like, how do we expand our narrative? How do we expand our brand? How do we look at programs at Eaze like Momentum around investing in the community within cannabis and being able to take that and be a nationwide campaign? Like, those are big aspirations that I think.
I love that, the Momentum accelerator.
Have you've participated in that, right?
I've done a little bit of like mentoring for some of the the graduates, if you will. But I just think being part of the solution we're doing right, you have to, right?
Right.
And that's something that and what the NBA player too,
Matt Barnes is on the is helping run that and is advisor on it. Yeah,
I ran into him like so many events in LA. It's ridiculous.
Really?
Oh, he's prolific.
Yeah, he's great.
But a great guy, personable, and obviously
he's committed to the cannabis industry, and he's definitely been committed with our team on expanding the Momentum program, getting more coverage on it, getting more eyes on it, getting more people involved. So he's been a great addition to our team.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Austin, thank you for coming in today. I think we went a little bit over time, but this was long overdue.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
Well.
All right.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.